All right, today we're going to jump into the absolutely wild and brilliant world of Alexander Pope, one of the sharpest, wittiest minds of the 18th century. We're going to figure out what made him such a genius by looking at the true story, and I mean it's totally true, behind his most famous and, let's be honest, his most hilarious poem.
So let me ask you this. What if there was an epic war, but it was fought over a haircut? Seriously. Imagine gods getting involved, magical spirits flying around, huge heroic battles, and the whole thing kicks off because someone snipped off a single piece of hair. Sounds crazy, right? Well, that is exactly the wild, brilliant idea we're diving into today.
And the guy who came up with all this? The one and only Alexander Pope. Now, you might think you don't know him, but I promise you, you've heard his lines before. He was a total master of the English language, especially famous for these things called heroic couplets. Basically, these perfect little rhyming pairs of lines that just zing with wit and wisdom. The guy was a legend.
See, Pope was a defining voice during the Enlightenment, this big moment of reason and new ideas. And his weapon of choice? Satire. He used this incredibly sharp wit, this razor-sharp humor, to basically make fun of the fancy, high society folks all around him. He wasn't just telling jokes. He was getting people to laugh at how ridiculous their own world could be.
Okay, so let's get into the main event, because the best part about Pope's most famous poem is that it wasn't made up. Nope, it was inspired by a real-life, super petty drama between rich families that just got completely out of hand.
So here's the tea. You've got this young aristocrat, Lord Petrie, at a party. He sees the beautiful Miss Arabella Fermor, and for some reason, he thinks it'd be hilarious to sneak up and snip off one of her pretty curls. Yeah, bad idea. It was not taken as a joke. The two families went to war over it. I mean, a full-on feud. It blew up into this huge scandal, and Pope was just sitting back, watching it all unfold, thinking, oh, this is gold. I have to write about this.
Okay, but how do you turn a haircut into an epic poem? Well, Pope used this amazing literary device called the mock epic. And the idea is just, it's so clever. You take something totally silly and unimportant, like a stolen curl of hair, and you write about it as if it's the Odyssey or the Iliad. You use all that grand, serious, dramatic language. You're basically making a gigantic mountain out of a tiny little molehill, and the result is absolutely hilarious.
So let's actually get into the story of the poem itself, The Rape of the Lock. Let's see how Pope took this silly little argument and blew it up into this epic adventure.
Okay, so the poem kicks off with our heroine, Belinda, who's standing in for Arabella. As she's sleeping, her guardian spirit, a tiny sylph named Ariel, comes to her in a dream and warns her that something terrible is about to happen that day. Of course, she brushes it off and sets off on a grand voyage by boat on the River Thames to get to a party. The scene then shifts to a fashionable card game, which Pope describes like it's an actual military battle, with strategies and heroes. And it's right in the middle of this battle that the villain, the Baron, takes his scissors and snip. He succeeds in his mission. He gets the lock.
But oh, the snipping of the hair is just where the story starts. After the attack, the drama just goes into complete overdrive.
Belinda is, as you can imagine, completely devastated, and to make things even more dramatic, this mischievous little gnome named Umbriel literally flies down to the Cave of Spleen, which is basically the mythical land of bad moods and despair. He comes back with a magic bag filled with sighs and tears, and he dumps it all on Belinda to make her even more upset. This leads to a massive fight in the living room, except, instead of swords, they're using angry looks and sharp insults. And in all the chaos, the lock of hair just vanishes. But don't worry, Pope gives it the perfect epic ending. It floats up into the sky and becomes a brand new star for everyone to admire forever. Seriously.
So, a beautiful woman, a stolen curl, tons of drama. That sounds like a reality TV show, right? So why is this silly-sounding poem considered one of the great masterpieces of English literature? Let's break it down.
This, right here, is what it all comes down to. This is the central joke. Think about what real epics are about. The rage of the gods, the destiny of entire countries, life and death. And what does Pope use that same epic style for? The rage of a socialite, the destiny of a card game, and the theft of a curl. By blowing these tiny little things up to epic proportions, he's holding up a giant mirror and showing these people just how ridiculous their priorities really were.
And that's the key thing here. It wasn't just about getting a laugh. Pope was making some seriously sharp points. He was tearing down the silly rules of the upper class, he was critiquing this obsession with looks and vanity, and he was pointing out how insane it was that a person's, especially a woman's, honor and reputation could be tied to something as flimsy as a lock of hair. And the rape of the lock wasn't some one-hit wonder. This was what Pope did. You can see it across his whole career. Whether it was his essay on criticism or the Dunciad, which was basically an epic takedown of all the terrible writers of his day, he was always using his poetry as a tool to poke, to question, and to think deeply about the world around him.
So that kind of leaves us with one last question, doesn't it? Pope's whole thing was satirizing the trivial, petty obsessions of his time. So if he were writing today, what would his mock epic be about? A Twitter feud? A celebrity breakup? An influencer scandal? What tiny little drama would he blow up into a celestial event? It's fun to think about. Thanks for joining me.